Hey everybody, today I'm going to talk about field recording, busking, gigging, off-grid with electrified music. In other words, not unplugged music. Generally speaking, when I do something, I'm usually running sound, and there's always plenty of power. I do all different kinds of gigs, but there's electricity there. I've done gigs this big where there's like street festivals and stuff. But one of my favorite things to do when I'm at those, when I got the time in between or after setup, is to check out all the bands that line up and down the street, and performers, sometimes solo, duos and stuff. And they're generally acoustic. And most of the time, it's some really good music, and I really enjoy it. And sometimes you get to see some really interesting characters and getting their acoustic freak on. Anyways, as time goes by, you're seeing more and more people plugging in. It's nothing really that new. Batteries and stuff have been around. People using microphones and amplifiers and so forth. But the technology is really coming along with the lighter amplifiers, Class Ds, lithium batteries and stuff. But stuff's still pretty expensive. And the question becomes, well, what if I've got perfectly serviceable gear, but I don't want to really invest in all new, powered, battery-powered speakers and stuff? Well, I didn't buy this for that reason, but I got this for my job. I use it on job sites to power tools and stuff like that, small stuff. And a friend of mine saw it and said, hey, you could probably use that for a small street gig, right? Because he likes to do that. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you could. Let me check it out. Let me plug a bunch of stuff into it and, see what you can run on it and for how long. So let's check it out. Okay, so what we're using is the Jackery, obviously. It delivers 1,000 watts. So let's put that into perspective. Let's say you have a hairdryer. It takes a lot of watts. Pulls 1,000. The Jackery is going to last 1 hour. Now, before you panic and think, well, I'm not going to be able to do much with this thing then, you got to look at everything that your gear is pulling, and it doesn't pull that kind of wattage. Here's some of the stuff that I'm going to actually use. This one pulls, as you can see, 15 watts. This pulls 45 watts. The next item pulls 35 watts. And now that's what it's saying. And we all know darn well, you've seen these crazy things where you get this speaker and it says, this thing delivers 1,500 watts. Well, it doesn't really. That's the peak wattage. The nominal wattage is way lower. And if you don't know what something pulls, if it doesn't say right on it, you can multiply the amps by the volts equals the watts. But let's make this really simple. We don't want to go through all this math. Just get yourself a kilowatt, or just watch me use one and you'll get a good idea. Basically what you do is you plug this in the wall, you plug your stuff into it, your whole rig, and it'll tell you what you're pulling. And I'm going to do that right now with the kind of gear that you'd pull out for a gig on the street. Plug it in, and let's see what this thing pulls. So here we go. All right, buskers. So we put together a little system here with some cheap powered speakers, but they're decent, Behringers. And then I decided to put a mixer in there so you could have different vocals and backing tracks, and a little 5-watt tube amp. But I checked a bunch of different amps. And then I'd bring my Gretsch guitar out there, no problem. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to see what kind of voltage this thing pulls. So here we go. All right, so we've got everything idling, just sitting with nothing going through it, about 57 watts. All right. So then if we decide to pump something through it, it's going to beef it up a little. Let's use this high-tech Walkman as our backing tracks. All right, here we go. All right, so now we'll just go from idle, and that's, running around 57 watts. And then we'll go ahead and pick up our high-tech machine here. All right, and play. Now, see, it's going to go up the more I boost the juice. All right, so that's just playing at a moderate level. Let's crank it up a little bit. And that's pretty loud. Yeah, all right, so that's what it's pulling. Let me go a little more. Yeah, we're at 61, 62. Let's crank it. That is definitely as loud as I would have it on the street. And so it's really not pulling that much. All right, so let's just kill it completely. And it goes back down to about 57. So there's your differential between, so it's not pulling, the hundreds of watts that you think it would. They say it will, but it's not pulling that much, and that's loud. So there you go with that particular thing. Now on the guitar amp, on the other hand, we'll check out what it does. All right, so let's go ahead and shut everything else off, and we'll check that out. All right, so I got that little tube amp cranked up about no, more than half, almost 3/4 of the way. It's probably a little louder than I would play it. It's on high power. So it's a 5-watt tube amp running as loud as I'd play it. And it's going to be pretty loud. You probably won't catch it through this 58. But anyway, so it's running. There it is, around 35 watts. So let's put a little hit on it, all right, and see what it does. Okay, so you see there's not a whole lot of difference. It's running no matter whether the speaker's rattling or not. It's pumping around 35 watts. So now when you add back in everything else, then you're going to probably peak out. It was 62. You're going to peak out at about 97. You're still under 100 watts when you add back in the mixer and the powered speakers. So that's not so bad. So let's move on to the next step. All right. Frame the Jackery up a little bit better there, and we'll go ahead and run it. Now that's it, just idling right there, and that's with the Z, the 2 speakers, and the Ampeg amp running. Let's go ahead and play the music. There you go. So it's still only pulling like max around 65 watts. And that's loud in here, trust me. Okay, enough of that. All right, so let's wrap it up with a little math quiz. It's really easy, actually. What we wound up with was we had a nominal wattage of 65 watts. We had momentary peaks of about 119. So you could add more to this system, obviously. You could make it bigger, because what it comes down to is the Jackery gives you 1,000 watts, and you've got 65 running, so you divide the 1,000 by 65, it gives you 15 hours runtime with this particular setup. So it shows you could add some lights, you could add something maybe a little more powerful, maybe a little bit bigger speakers. So all you got to do is just do the math, and something like this could work. So it's pretty cool, and I'm probably going to wind up doing it. I'm sure my friend is too. So James, go to it, man. Anyways, that's all I got for now. See you guys.